Good afternoon. How you doing? Welcome back to Mr. Morrow's algebra class. We're going to continue with our skills reviews today. And today we're going to talk about decimal operations. Very important. Please remember that we've already dealt with fractions. And please remember that fractions and decimals are just different ways of representing the same value. Please try to remember that, for example, 1/2 is the same thing as 0.5. Same value. 50%, but it's just different appearances. So, all right, let's go ahead and learn how to use decimals in our regular operations. Let's first talk about adding and subtracting decimals. First of all, whenever you're going to add or subtract decimals, you have to line up the decimals. Also, a little note there. Remember that whole values have a decimals at the end of the number. For example, the number 2 really equals 2.0. So when we're talking about lining up the decimals, I mean really line up the decimals. For example, if I have 7.65 plus 2.1 plus 0.03. When I line this up, I'm going to make sure that the decimals are all literally lined up, one under the other. The decimal is my guide. And then I go ahead and add from there. Okay? But the important thing to remember is to line up your decimals. Also, whole numbers. Again, please look at this example here. 2 really equals 2.0. When you're working with numbers, think about money. When you pay $20, it's really 20.00. There's always a decimal at the end of any number unless otherwise indicated. Of course, 1.362, the decimal is not at the end. The decimal is right here. So it's otherwise indicated. But if you just have a number like 70, please remember that it's really 70.0. That's going to make your life a lot easier when dealing with decimals. All right. Let's get rid of this. Okay, number 2. Very simple. Once you have lined up the decimals, go ahead and add or subtract them first or second. And that should be subtract. I don't know what word that is. Sorry about that. So yeah, once you go ahead and line up the decimals, please go ahead and add or subtract as normal. Make sure you carry down that decimal though, okay? Let's go ahead and just practice a few. I got 3.256 plus 10.25. So I'm going to line up the decimals. So I'm going to put 10.25. Now I'm going to add as normal. So that's 6. Try to stay neat. Try to stay lined up. 5 plus 5 is 10. So I'm going to carry the 1. 1 plus 2 is 3 plus 2 is 5. You have your decimal there. Be neat about it, please. Keep it in the same spot. 3 plus 0 is 3. And then you have 1. So 13.506 or 13 and 506 thousandths is your answer. Okay, I've got 5.6 minus 3.254. I love these types of problems because sometimes my students don't remember that you have to add some zeros to the top number and you have to start borrowing. So let me show you what I'm talking about. I've got 5.6 minus, remember, line up the decimals whenever you're adding or subtracting decimals, 3.254. So I've got 5.6. Go ahead and add 2 zeros there. After all, what values are there? 0. That's the way you work this. Once you have those zeros, now you can start subtracting as normal. You can't take 4 from 0, but you can borrow, okay, 10 from this 0 here, making that a 9, and this becomes a 10. So now I have 6, 4, 4. Please always be neat. Drop down your decimal in the correct spot, and then that's going to be 2. And you're done. Nice and simple. Okay, let's continue. I've got 11.235 minus 6.598. Let's go ahead and line it up, please. So I've got 11.235 minus 6.598. Okay, I can't take 8 from 5, so I'm going to have to borrow. So it becomes a 2. That's a 15. So I've got 7. Got to borrow again, making that a 12, so that's 3. Got to borrow again, making that an 11, so that's 6. Please drop down the decimal. Don't forget about that. Got to borrow again, making that a 10, so that's 4. 4.637. And then last but not least, we got 151.256 plus 11 and 23. Actually, you know what? Let me write it out for us. It's going to be a lot neater. So 151 and 256 thousandths plus 11 and 23 ten thousandths. Again, whenever I have a number in the bottom part, okay, whether I'm adding or subtracting, get in the habit of putting a 0 above it if there's not a number there already. 3 plus 0 is 3. We got 8, 5. Please stay neat, steady, line things up. It's all about organization, making sure your answer is clear, not only to you, but to the reader of your answers. All right, so that's adding and subtracting decimals. Pretty easy. Let's move on. Multiplying and dividing decimals. When you're multiplying decimals, you're going to multiply as normal. And just ignore the decimals at first, okay? So just multiply as normal, I promise, and just ignore the decimals. Once you have the product, move the product's decimal. Product, by the way, is the answer to a multiplication problem, just in case you didn't know. So move the product's decimal to the left for as many places as there are numbers behind the original decimal value. I'm going to explain that right now, and the best way to explain that is with actual problems. So let's go ahead and take 3.29 here times 1.6. Okay, we're going to ignore the decimals right now, and we're going to just multiply. So let's multiply. 6 times 9 is 54. Carry the 5. 6 times 2 is 12 plus 5, 17. 18 plus 1 is 19. I always like to put a 0 because I've already used the ones place. So I can't use that 6 anymore, so I put a 0 there just to help myself. Now I'm starting on the tens place. That's why I'm starting on the tens place here on my answer. 1 times 9 is 9. 1 times 2 is 2. And then I have 3. I've got 4. 16. Carry the 1. That's 10. Plus 2 is 12. Carry the 1. 4, 5. Okay, now I have my product. But now I'm going to look at the original problem. I'm going to see how many numbers do I have behind decimals. In this case, I've got 1, 2, 3 numbers. So I'm going to, remember, every whole number has a decimal at the right. From the end of the number, I'm going to go 1, 2, 3 to the left, giving me the answer 5.264. So multiply as normal. Find out how many numbers are behind the decimal in the original problem, and then move that many spaces to the left. Okay, let's try another one. We got here, this time we're going to have a lot of decimal placement. So we got 10102 times 0.213. Remember, you don't have to line these decimals up. Lining decimals up is only for addition and subtraction. So let's multiply. So I'm sure you're going to follow with me because these are very easy numbers. Remember, we already used the ones place. Okay, now we use the ones place, and we already used the tens place. So I put another 0 there to help myself, to guide myself. Okay, so let's line it up. Stay nice and neat. It's all about neatness. It's all about organization. It's all about knowing where you put your answer. Now that's my product. I know that the decimal's over here at the end, but I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 numbers behind the decimal. So I have to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. An extra space. Where do I put there? A 0. So my final answer is 0.02151726. Awesome. I hope that made sense. Nice and easy when you really just pay attention to it. multiply as normal, and then move the decimal to the left as many places as there are numbers behind that decimal. Okay, let me go ahead and try to shrink this up for us really quickly because it's blocking my next. Let me go ahead and shrink this up. So if you still need it, hopefully you can still see that. But okay, now to continue. Let's move on to dividing decimals, the last skill of the day. First of all, please remember, back from fractions, whatever's on the numerator is at the top. That's the numerator. The bottom is the denominator. Well, when we're dividing decimals or whole numbers, it doesn't really matter. I want you to please realize that your setup is very, very, very important. Okay, sorry about that. All right, guys, so when you're setting up a division problem, whether it's for whole numbers or decimals, please remember the following. The denominator, okay, is known as the divisor. It goes on the outside. That's the denominator. It goes outside. It does not matter if the denominator is smaller or larger than the numerator. It does not matter. The denominator always goes on the outside. Always. The numerator, okay, is called the dividend. And that goes on the inside of the division symbol. That's the numerator. The denominator goes outside. Goes outside. The numerator goes inside. Okay? Think about it like this. Let's say you got 2 dogs and you only got 1 dog house, okay? The denominator is the denounced dog. That's the dog that stays outside. He's at the bottom. It's at the bottom. The number 1 dog, he's the one that goes into the house. Okay? I know that's not a very nice way to put it, but that may help you remember. So the denominator is denounced. He's outside. Numerator's number 1. It's inside. Okay. Awesome. Now let's get to a couple more things about dividing. If the divisor is a decimal, remember the divisor, again, guys, is the denominator. It's the outside number, okay? It's the denominator. If that divisor is a decimal, it must be converted into a whole number by moving the decimal to the right as many places as needed. However, whatever is done to the divisor must be done to the dividend. So whatever is done to the denominator must be done to the numerator. We've already seen this concept in equivalent fractions. If you remember, when we're trying to convert 2 fractions to have the same common denominator, don't we multiply by, for example, 3 over 3 or 5 over 5? Don't we multiply by equivalent fraction? Yeah. So it's the same concept, okay? But it's just in decimals. Same values, different format. Okay, so what's the procedure here? Well, number 1, convert the divisor into a whole number if needed. If it's already a whole number, you don't have to worry. If it is not a whole number, if it's a decimal, please see note above. You got to move the decimals as many places to the right as possible to make it a whole number. Number 2, find the location of the dividend's decimal and move it to the top of the division symbol. 3, divide as normal and use the decimal location you have marked. Let's go ahead and see what I'm talking about here. For example, okay, this is 2.509 divided by 0.03. How do I know that? Because remember, this is the denominator. So if I had that in fraction form, it would be 2.509 divided by 0.03. So that's the denominator, okay? And that's how you read that. It's the dividend divided by the divisor. So this is 2.509 divided by 0.03. I have a decimal value here as my divisor. I cannot have that. So I'm going to go ahead and move that decimal to the right 1, 2 places. Why 2 places? Because that makes it a whole number now. Okay? And whatever I do to the divisor, I must do to the dividend. So I'm going to go 1, 2 as well. And I'm going to go ahead and bring that right up here. Okay? So just to make it neater, now I have converted to the following problem. 250.2 9. So I'm going to go ahead and bring up my decimal. I always do that so I don't forget. Now let's divide as normal. 3 doesn't go into 2, but it goes into 25 8 times. Please notice that I placed the 8 above the 5. I placed it above the 5 because 3 goes into 25 times. 8 times, rather. 3 goes into 25 8 times, okay? Always put the number over the value that it's going into. So 3 goes into 25 8 times. That's 24, of course. You subtract. 3 goes into 10. Again, notice I'm going to put it over the 0 3 times. So that's a 9 rather there. Sorry. That's a 9. Make that neater. So that's so 1. We got a 19. This is going to be a 6. This goes in 6 times. Okay. Now this is a part that a lot of people get stuck on. Please don't worry about this anymore. Just add a 0. Okay, and then that's going to be 3. That's going to be 9. And that's going to continue repeating forever. So we could put the repeating symbol over those 2 3s. May not have been a very pretty number or a pretty problem, but it works. Nice and easy if you know what you're doing. All right. Let's go ahead and let's not move that. Let's go ahead. I'm going to erase this, so I hope you guys got that. Leave it up for a second. So let's see if I can. Okay, yeah, I can go ahead and shrink it up again. Okay. Awesome. Okay, this one will be nice and easy. 9 goes on the outside, 5.4. The divisor's a whole number. Bring up the decimal to the top. 9 goes into 54 6 times. Done. So your answer is 6/10. Okay? Let's continue. I've got here 6 on the outside and 4.428. So that's 4.428 divided by 6. Bring up that decimal immediately. Make it a habit. 6 goes into 44 7 times. That's 42. Just subtract. Bring down the number to the right. 6 goes into 22 3 times. It's going to be 18. 4. Bring down the number. Remember, when there's no number to bring down, you add a 0 if you've already placed your decimal. 6 goes into 48 8 times. And that's 0. So my answer is 0.738. Okay. Last but not least. All right. I've got 1.5. Okay. Well, let's read it the right way. I've got 0.3 divided by 1.5. So I'm going to move this decimal 1 to the right. I'm going to move this decimal 1 to the right. And I'm going to bring it up immediately. So it leaves me with 5 on the outside and 3, 1.5. Oh, sorry about that, guys. It leaves me with 115 and 3.0 on the inside. Go ahead and put that there. 15 goes into 32 times. Bada bing, bada boom. 2/10 is your answer. I hope that makes sense. I hope it answers a lot of questions. And I hope you enjoyed it. Have a great day. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.